The crystal goblet slipped from Leora's fingers and shattered against the marble floor. The sound rang through the grand ballroom like a gunshot. Music faltered. Conversations died. Every head turned. Leora froze, her breath locked painfully in her chest as hundreds of eyes landed on her at once, curious, judgmental, amused. She bent down quickly, hands trembling as she reached for the shards, her cheeks burning. Careful, a voice laughed above her. You might cut yourself, though I doubt anyone would notice. The laughter that followed was sharp and cruel. Leora didn't need to look up to know who it was. Her sister. Seraphina stood a few steps away, draped in silver silk that clung perfectly to her tall, elegant frame. Diamonds glittered at her throat. Her dark hair was styled flawlessly, her smile radiant and vicious. Seraphina, Leora whispered, keeping her eyes down. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to embarrass yourself? Seraphina tilted her head, feigning pity. Oh, Leora. That's all you ever do. More laughter rippled through the crowd. Nobles leaned closer, whispering behind jeweled fans. Leora's ears rang as if she were underwater. She straightened slowly, glass forgotten, her hands clenched at her sides. I was invited, Leora said quietly. Seraphina laughed louder. Invited? She looked around theatrically. Did you hear that? She thinks she belongs here. Someone snorted. Another muttered, an Omega at the Royal Moon Ball? Seraphina stepped closer, lowering her voice just enough to make it sting more. I invited you, she said sweetly. I thought it would be entertaining. Watching you stand here, pretending you're not invisible. Leora swallowed hard. Why are you doing this? Seraphina's eyes gleamed. Because tonight matters. And you? She leaned in, lips close to Leora's ear. You don't. Then she pulled back and said it loudly, clearly, for the entire ballroom to hear. Nobody wants you. The words struck like a slap. Silence fell, thick, heavy, suffocating. Leora felt something inside her crack. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a quiet, final break, like ice giving way under too much weight. She nodded once. You're right. Seraphina blinked, momentarily surprised. Leora turned. As she walked toward the edge of the ballroom, whispers followed her like shadows. Poor thing. Why did she even come? She looks like a ghost. Leora kept her chin up, even as her vision blurred. Her slippers barely made a sound against the marble, but each step felt like a march through fire. She reached the tall glass doors just as the orchestra resumed playing, the music washing over her like nothing had happened. As if she had never existed at all. She pushed the doors open and stepped into the cool night air, her breath breaking free in a shaky exhale. Moonlight bathed the palace gardens in silver. Somewhere behind her, laughter rose again. She shouldn't have come. She had known this night would hurt. But not like this. Get a grip, she muttered to herself, pressing a hand to her chest. Just get out. She lifted her skirts and hurried down the steps, desperate to disappear. Inside the ballroom, Seraphina lifted her chin, satisfaction curling in her chest. Finally, the nuisance was gone. She turned just as a hush swept across the room, not the awkward pause from before, but something deeper, heavier. The kind of silence that made hearts pound and spines straighten. The Alpha King had arrived. Kael'ric of the North stepped into the ballroom like a storm given flesh. Tall, broad-shouldered. Dressed in black and gold, power rolled off him in waves that made even seasoned alphas bow their heads instinctively. His silver eyes scanned the room slowly, sharply, missing nothing. Seraphina's breath hitched. This was it. This was the moment she had been waiting for her entire life. She smoothed her gown, adjusted her posture, and stepped forward into the open space, heart racing. Around her, noble daughters did the same, smiles practiced, eyes bright with hope. The Alpha King took one step forward, then another. He stopped. His gaze flicked not to Seraphina, not to the nobles, not to the glittering chandeliers, but toward the open doors at the far end of the hall. His jaw tightened. Something was wrong. Kael'ric felt it like a blade between his ribs. A sudden emptiness. A pull. She was leaving. Without a word, he turned. Gasps echoed as the Alpha King changed direction, his boots striking the marble with deliberate force. Seraphina's smile faltered. Your Majesty? She called softly. He didn't look at her. He walked past her, past the stunned nobles, past the whispers, straight toward the doors. What? Someone murmured. Seraphina spun, panic surging. Wait. The doors burst open just as Leora reached the garden path. She froze as heavy footsteps approached behind her. She didn't turn. She couldn't. Leora. Her name, spoken in a deep, commanding voice, sent a shock through her entire body. Slowly, she turned. The Alpha King stood before her, moonlight catching in his silver eyes, his presence overwhelming, undeniable. Her heart slammed painfully against her ribs. "Why, Your Majesty," she whispered, instinct forcing her into a shallow bow. "Don't," he said, his voice softer now. "Look at me." She lifted her gaze. And the world shifted. Leora's breath caught as she lifted her gaze fully to him. Up close, the Alpha King was even more overwhelming. His presence pressed against her senses, not aggressive, but vast, like standing too close to the edge of the sea. His silver eyes searched her face with an intensity that made her feel exposed, as though he could see straight through her skin and into every secret she'd buried. I should go," Leora said, her voice barely steady. "I didn't mean to cause trouble." "You didn't," Kelric replied instantly. The certainty in his tones startled her. Behind him, the open doors framed the stunned ballroom. Faces crowded the entrance now, nobles, guards, ladies clutching their gowns. Seraphina stood at the front, her expression frozen between disbelief and fury. Kelric took one step closer to Leora. The air shifted. Leora's pulse spiked, her wolf, silent for most of her life, stirring uneasily in her chest. "You were leaving," he said, not as a question. "Yes," she answered. "I don't belong here." A flicker of something dark crossed his face. Anger. Not at her. "Who told you that?" She hesitated. "Everyone." His jaw tightened. "That's not an answer." She swallowed. "My sister." Murmurs erupted from the doorway. Seraphina took an involuntary step forward. "Your Majesty, please, this is a misunderstanding." Kelric didn't turn his head. "Be silent." The command rolled through the night like thunder. Seraphina stiffened, her mouth snapping shut. Kelric's focus returned to Leora. "Did she say those words to you?" Leora nodded slowly. "She said nobody wants me." For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the ground beneath Kelric's boots cracked. A sharp fracture spiderwebbed across the stone path, stopping inches from Leora's feet. Gasps erupted behind them. Kelric exhaled through his nose, visibly restraining something dangerous. "She was wrong," he said. Leora let out a hollow laugh. "You don't have to comfort me, Your Majesty. I'm used to it." His eyes softened, and somehow that hurt more. "You shouldn't be." He reached out. The crowd collectively inhaled. When his fingers brushed Leora's wrist, heat surged through her veins like wildfire. She gasped, stumbling back as a strange, glowing sensation ignited beneath her skin. "What did you do?" She whispered, panic rising. Kelric froze too, shock flashing across his face. He stared at her wrist. There, just beneath the surface of her skin, something shimmered faintly, like moonlight trapped in flesh. "Impossible." "You feel it too," he said quietly. "Yes," she breathed. "It's burning." A low growl rumbled in his chest, raw and unrestrained. "Of course it is." He turned sharply toward the crowd. "Clear the gardens." The guards moved instantly, ushering nobles back despite their protests. Seraphina tried to resist, but two warriors blocked her path. "No," she snapped. "You can't just, she's nothing. She's an Omega. She's weak." Kelric faced her at last. The look he gave her made Seraphina pale. "You hit her," he said. Seraphina's eyes widened. "I don't know what you're talking about." "You masked her scent. Suppressed her wolf. For years." His voice dropped. "Why?" Silence stretched. Then Seraphina laughed, a brittle, cracking sound. "Because she didn't deserve it. Because it was supposed to be me." Leora stared at her sister. "What are you saying?" Seraphina's eyes burned into hers. "I knew when we were children. The elders told our parents. They said you were different. That you carried something ancient. Something dangerous." Leora's chest tightened. "You lied to me." "I protected us," Seraphina snapped. "If they knew what you were, they would have taken you. Used you." Kaelric scoffed. No, they would have bowed. Seraphina's breath hitched. That's not true. It is, he said coldly. Because she is mine. The words echoed through the gardens like a verdict. Leora's knees nearly gave out. What? Kaelric turned back to her, his voice lower now, rough with emotion. You are my mate. Her mind reeled. That's impossible. I would have known. You were blocked, he said. By blood magic. Crude, but effective. She shook her head violently. No, you're wrong. I'm nothing like you. I don't even have a proper wolf. Kaelric cupped her face gently, forcing her to meet his eyes. Look at me. She did. The moment their gazes locked, the bond snapped into place. Power surged through her, bright, overwhelming, terrifying. Memories not her own flickered at the edges of her mind. Moons rising. Wolves kneeling. A crown forged of light. She cried out, clutching his arm as her legs buckled. Kaelric caught her instantly, holding her against his chest. It's okay, he murmured. I've got you. Her tears soaked into his tunic. I don't want this. I just wanted to disappear. He tightened his hold. I searched for you for years. She laughed weakly. You found the wrong girl. No, he said fiercely. I found the right one too late. Behind them, Seraphina screamed. This is insane. You can't just make her queen because of some bond. Kaelric looked over Leora's head. Watch me. Guards seized Seraphina as she struggled, her composure finally shattering. You think she can rule? Seraphina spat. She can barely stand. Leora lifted her head slowly. Her hands stopped shaking. She pulled back just enough to look at her sister. I stood for years while you crushed me, she said quietly. Don't mistake kindness for weakness. Something in her voice changed. The moon above them flared brighter. And for the first time, Seraphina looked afraid. Seraphina stumbled back as if struck, her eyes darting between Leora and the Alpha King. You don't even know what you are, she said hoarsely. You think this power is a gift? It will destroy you. Leora felt it then, something deep inside her chest, no longer curled and hiding, but stretching, awakening. It wasn't violent. It wasn't cruel. It was vast. Old. Patient. I've already been destroyed, Leora replied. Living is nothing. Living is less. Kaelric's hand rested firmly at her back, grounding her. She won't be alone, he said. Not ever again. The nobles had been pushed back into the ballroom, but they hadn't gone far. They watched from the threshold, hungry for scandal, fear flickering behind their jeweled masks. Whispers rose again, but now they were uncertain. And Omega? The Alpha King's mate? That mark, did you see it? Leora followed their gazes down to her wrist. The faint glow had intensified, weaving into a delicate crescent-shaped sigil she had never seen before. It pulsed softly, in rhythm with her heartbeat. Kaelric lifted her hand gently, presenting it to the crowd. Behold the moon-bound mark, he announced. A sign lost to history. A bond older than our kingdoms. Shock rippled outward. An elderly noble stepped forward, voice trembling. Your Majesty, that mark hasn't appeared in centuries. Because she was hidden, Kaelric said. By fear. By envy. All eyes turned to Seraphina. She shook her head wildly. I did what I had to. You don't understand what it was like, always second, always watching her while they whispered about destiny. I was the one who trained. I was the one who prepared to be Luna. Leora's chest tightened. You never once asked what I wanted. Seraphina laughed bitterly. Because it didn't matter. Kaelric's voice cut through the night. It does now. He turned to Leora, lowering his tone so only she could hear. What happens next is your choice. She looked up at him, startled. What? I can command them to kneel, he said. I can claim you publicly, bind the kingdom to you by law and blood. Or, he paused. You can walk away. I won't stop you. Her breath hitched. You'd let me go? His jaw tightened. I would hate it. But yes. The weight of the moment pressed down on her, heavier than any insult Shed ever endured. This wasn't about being chosen anymore. This was about choosing herself. She turned slowly, facing the crowd. Faces that had laughed at her now watched in stunned silence. She thought of all the nights Shed cried quietly into her pillow. All the times Shed stepped aside so Seraphina could shine. All the times Shed been told she was too small, too quiet, too insignificant. Her voice trembled at first, but grew steadier with every word. I was told my entire life that I didn't belong, that I should be grateful for scraps of kindness, that my existence was a mistake. Seraphina's lips parted, but no words came. I believed it, Leora continued. I made myself smaller so others would feel comfortable. I learned how to disappear. She lifted her chin. I won't do that anymore. A ripple of energy surged outward, gentle but undeniable. The moonlight seemed to bend toward her, wrapping her in silver. Kilric felt it and went still. Leora turned to him. I don't know how to be a queen. I don't know how to rule. I'm afraid. His mouth curved into a faint, reverent smile. So was I. She took a deep breath. But I won't run. Kilric dropped to one knee. The sound of armor striking stone echoed like thunder. I, Kilric of the North, Alpha King of the United Realms, he said loudly, pledge myself to Leora of the Moonbound. Not because of her power, not because of prophecy, but because she chose to stand. A heartbeat of stunned silence passed. Then, one by one, the nobles followed. Knees hit marble. Heads bowed. The sight stole Leora's breath. Seraphina screamed. No, this isn't fair. Guards moved in, restraining her as she thrashed. You can't take everything from me. Leora walked toward her sister, stopping just out of reach. I never wanted to take anything from you, she said softly. I just wanted you to stop taking from me. Seraphina's fury crumpled into something raw and desperate. You think they'll love you? They'll fear you. And when you falter, they'll turn on you. Maybe, Leora said. But I'll face it as myself. Kilric stood, taking Leora's hand once more. The bond between them hummed, steady and warm. Take her away, he ordered. As Seraphina was dragged from the gardens, her screams faded into the night. Leora exhaled shakily. I feel like I'm standing on the edge of something enormous. Kilric squeezed her fingers. You are. And I'll be right beside you. She looked at him then, not as a frightened girl, not as an unwanted sister, but as a woman stepping into her own story. And for the first time, she smiled. The ballroom felt different when Leora stepped back inside. It wasn't just the bowed heads or the way conversations stopped the instant she crossed the threshold. It was the air itself, charged, expectant, as if the walls remembered her humiliation and were now holding their breath. Kilric walked beside her, his presence steady and unyielding. Where earlier she had felt like a shadow clinging to the edges of the room, now every step she took echoed. A noblewoman whispered, is that her? Another murmured, the one the Alpha King chose. Leora's spine straightened. She didn't look away. At the center of the hall, Kilric stopped. He turned to face her, his voice low but clear. This is where they first tried to break you. She nodded. The memory burned sharp and vivid. Yes, then this is where they will see you rise. He lifted their joined hands. The orchestra, unsure but obedient, began to play again, slow, reverent notes that filled the space with something almost sacred. Kilric extended his hand. May I? Leora stared at him. Right now? A hint of warmth softened his stern expression. Especially now. Her heart pounded as she placed her hand in his. They moved onto the dance floor together. Gasps swept through the room. Some nobles looked away, unable to reconcile what they were seeing. Others stared openly, awe and fear mingling in their eyes. Leora felt every gaze, but for once, it didn't crush her. Kilric guided her with quiet confidence. Breathe, he murmured. You're safe. I've never danced before, she admitted under her breath. His lips twitched. Neither have I. We'll survive. That earned a soft, startled laugh from her, one that felt foreign and wonderful. As they turned, her gaze caught a familiar figure at the edge of the crowd, her mother. The woman's eyes were wet, her hands clasped tightly together. She mouthed Leora's name, voice trembling. Leora hesitated. Kilric noticed instantly. Do you want to speak to her? Yes. The dance ended, and Kilric released her hand reluctantly. I'll be right here. Leora approached her mother slowly. You knew, she said, not accusing, just tired. Her mother nodded, tears spilling freely now. I was afraid. Afraid of losing you. Afraid of what you might become. I was afraid too, Leora replied. But you let them erase me. I know, her mother whispered. and I will carry that guilt for the rest of my life. Leora studied her for a long moment. The anger she expected didn't come, only a quiet sadness. I can't fix the past, Leora said, but I won't live in it anymore. Her mother bowed her head. Then let me stand behind you now. Leora didn't answer, but she didn't turn away either. When she returned to Kilrick's side, he searched her face. Are you all right? She nodded. I think. I finally am. A herald stepped forward, voice echoing through the hall. All hail Leora of the Moonbound, chosen mate of the Alpha King. The words sent a tremor through her. Applause began, hesitant at first, then growing, spreading until it filled the room. Some clapped out of duty, others out of awe, a few out of genuine respect. Leora met their eyes, one by one. She was no longer shrinking. Kilrick leaned closer. There will be challenges, enemies, doubt. I know, she said quietly. And still? She lifted her chin. Still, I choose this. He smiled then, not the controlled expression of a ruler, but something real, something warm. Then we will face it together. Later, as the night wore on and the moon climbed higher, Leora stood at the balcony overlooking the gardens, the place where she had almost run away. Kilrick joined her, draping a cloak over her shoulders. Cold? A little. He looked out over the grounds. You know, when I crossed that room tonight, I wasn't thinking like a king. She glanced at him. What were you thinking like? A man who finally found what had been missing. Her chest tightened. I spent my life believing nobody wanted me. He turned to her fully. They were wrong. She looked at the moon, then back at the ballroom glowing behind them. At the future stretching uncertain but bright before her. For the first time, she believed it too. Because she hadn't been chosen out of pity. She had been seen. And that changed everything. If this story moved you, let me know in the comments. And if you believe destiny never makes mistakes, subscribe for more stories like this.